I'm John Ash, and the subject today that I'm going to address is something that I love a great deal, and that's mushrooms. And Tiffany, who's photographing this for me, she's sort of zeroing in on some of the mushrooms that are available to us here. These are, at one time, were all wild mushrooms, but now they've been cultivated. You can't cultivate all wild mushrooms, but many of them you can. And this is some of them. The white ones are called alba. They're part of the oyster family. This kind of rasty looking one right here is hen of the woods, maitake, which is really great. These are trumpet mushrooms. Then there's some brown ones there that are called clam shell, which are also part of the oyster family. Basically, the ones that you can cultivate are those that grow on wood. Those that grow in the ground, like chanterelles or truffles and all of that stuff, although they've tried, they haven't been as successful in doing those. These all come from, and I'm going to make this statement, have nothing to do with this company. It's just that I've used their products for such a long time, is a company called Gourmet Mushroom, who are here in Northern California, and they now sell their mushrooms nationally through distributors and all of that stuff. So if you think you ever want to try some of these, they're really pretty extraordinary. You can go to their website, which is mycopia.com, mycopia.com, and get more info. All of the things I'm going to do today, if you didn't want to use these exotic mushrooms, could all be done with things that are available to you in the market, like shiitake and other regular oysters and those kinds of things. So you don't have to have these, is the point. So we're going to do 3 dishes today that I like very much. We're going to do a soup, a kind of Southeast Asian soup, which is pretty simple to put together. I've already started it here. I have some onions that I've done in the pan here. I'll hold that up so we can get a shot of it. Onions, there you go. You all know what cooking onions look like. And I haven't ground these. I've left them kind of as they are because I love the texture. It's why I use white onions for this instead of yellow, because they have more of that texture. So here we go. And this is a simple one. And what I've done is to use things that are available to us from the Asian market or from Asian distributors and all of that. One of them is curry paste. I'm using a yellow curry paste today. You can make your own, but I find that using the already made ones, make sure that you have consistency because they can vary so much because there are so many ingredients in them. This is a brand called Mayploy, which is my favorite. I also like their coconut milk. So I'm going to take some of this and dump it into my, put some into the onions. And I'm just doing this on the fly. You all have recipes for this. So you can follow the recipe if you want, or you can be bold like me and just do it. So what I'm going to do is dump some of the curry paste in here. How much? It's pretty spicy, so maybe that much. And we can always go back and add more later on. And what I'm going to do is to stir this around and let it cook a little bit, let it develop its flavor. The thing about mushrooms, I think that we want to keep in mind, I know years and years ago when I started being this old guy, I was told by chefs and nutritionists, mushrooms, they have no nutritional value, blah, blah, blah. They're mostly water. So don't think of them as real food. They're really there to add flavor, which of course is not true. We know now that mushrooms have extraordinary nutritional qualities. Some of the ones that are here, the trumpets, as an example of that, the part of it that is used for, they're called Nutraceuticals. The part of it that's used for that is the stuff that grows under the ground, is the place where they extract those. And in our part of the world here, they found that the things that they're extracting from that have been used to treat all kinds of things, including AIDS, including their immune boosters. So that's a great part of them. Plus, they're really delicious. And I think it's fascinating that at this point in time, since there's so much emphasis, I mean, look at all the amazing restaurants now that are going to vegetarian menus and all of that. Mushrooms really provide that kind of meaty thing that I think we all crave the lots of the umami and all of that. Okay, this is, I can smell it. It's kind of developing here. I'm going to dump in some stock. This is chicken stock. But if you wanted to make this vegetarian, of course, you'd use a vegetarian stock to do this. So I'm going to crank this up a little bit so that we can get done with this. Stir this around, get it going. And then what I'm going to add to it to flavor it, again, using ingredients that, for the most part, that you can buy in the market, are few. So the curry paste is one. In Southeast Asian cooking, my Southeast Asian chef friends tell me that what we're dealing with are the 4 flavor gods. And the 4 flavor gods are hot, which comes from chili or curry, salty, which never comes from salt, granulated salt, but always comes from fish sauce, which is the salt component in the dishes. And this is my favorite brand of this, called Red Boat, which I think is, I mean, you can use any of them, but this is a little more refined and I think really good. This is chili garlic paste to add some heat to this. So we have salt and heat working here. How much should I add? Oh, maybe not much. And as I say, I'll go back and taste this to make sure it's okay. The 3rd flavor god in that part of the world is sweet. Even in savory foods, sweet is an important thing. So I'm using some palm sugar here. You could use brown sugar. And it's not that I want to make this sweet, but sugar is one of nature's most perfect flavor enhancers. What it does is it brings flavors together. It helps, add things that you wouldn't have if you didn't add a little bit of sweet to it. And the other one that we want to add to this, I'm going to put in a little bit now, and then just a little bit before we serve it, so that we get the fresh fragrance of it, is sour. And it can be limes, which I'm using here. It could be tamarind, which is also a souring agent. So some of that goes in here too. About that much. The fish sauce is in there. And finally, we're going to do some coconut milk, which I have. And this is, you all know about coconut milks. Again, all of us have our favorites. This is my favorite. Here, I'll turn it around so you can see this is mayploy again. And the reason I like it is there are no starches or thickeners in it. It's just the pure coconut milk, which is great. So how much? I don't know. Since we are doing this, how about that much? Or maybe that much. So we're going to bring that to the simmer. And then the other thing that is in here, which I should have added when I added the stock, are Kaffir lime leaves. I'm lucky here in Northern California. We get freezing weather in the winter, but I grow Kaffir lime trees in pots. And in the wintertime, I just shove them up against the house, which keeps them from getting killed. But here they are, and they're really beautiful. They're so fragrant. It's a classic 2-leaf thing. And what you do is bruise them a little bit. You can just squeeze them. Don't use dried or frozen Kaffir lime leaves because they just aren't the same. So if you can't get fresh Kaffir lime leaves to do things with, how much, let's see, I want this to be pretty limey. I'm going to put in maybe 3 of them that I've done here. If you can't get fresh Kaffir lime leaves, what you can do is take the lime and with a microplane or something, just take off some of that zest and throw it in there to substitute for the lime leaf. And then finally, that will go, not finally, but what's next to finally, almost, that's going to go in here. Well, I've already done these ahead. I sauteed some of those clamshell mushrooms and not overcook them. I want them to have a little bit of texture for our soup, and you can kind of see it here. So I'm going to throw those in. And then the very final thing I'm going to do, it in the recipe that you have, it uses dried rice noodles, which actually I don't like so much because I think they're sometimes unpredictable in terms of how they rehydrate, and they sometimes have a funny flavor. What you can do is substitute instead fresh rice noodles, rice stick, which are widely available. You can get them through any Asian market or Asian distributor. And what I'll do is, these don't even need to cook. I could actually just throw them in the bowl and then put the hot soup over the top and we'd be good to go. But I'll throw some of those in just at the very last moment. So here goes our mushrooms. And these are kind of long, so they kind of fly all over the place. But let me grab some scissors here and I'll cut them, which will make it a little bit easier to deal with them. As you can see, they kind of fly around, but makes it easier to deal with. So I want this to come to the simmer here. And you could take the lime leaves out. They're really not edible in the whole form, or leave them in, which is what I like to do because I think they're sort of pretty. It's like leaving a bay leaf in a stew or something. And so here's a bowl for these. And what I want to do is bring this to the simmer. Of course, I want to taste it and see if there's any modification that's necessary to this, but we'll go like so. Tastes pretty good. I'm going to add just a touch more sugar, that nature's flavor enhancer. And I'm also going to, in the bowl here, I'm going to put in a little fresh lime juice, uncooked, so that I get that wonderful fragrance. Now the noodles. Like so, you can add as much or as little of those as you want, but this is kind of a noodle dish, so that's a good thing. Let me cut some more of these off here. Okay, well, that when it flies all over the picture. Okay, so that's it. And so we're done with this. I'm gonna label this up. It's pretty delicious. I fixed some of it for Tiffany yesterday. She approved.
It's delicious.
Okay. So here we go. The noodles are there, and again, again, I could have just put the noodles in the bottom of the bowl. Let's get a lime leaf in there too, because it's so pretty. And here we're going to put it up here. And I'll let Tiffany get close to that with some chopsticks or an Asian soup spoon. Thank you. And we'll garnish this with a little bit of slivered green onion and maybe a little bit of cilantro. And we're done. So
Okay.
That's it.
What if the people you make this for don't like curry paste? Is there a substitute?
Well, it's a curried soup, so you could make it without the curry, but of course, it's not going to taste the same. If you don't want to use the curry paste, you could use other curries. You could use dried curries, but still, it's that, curry. All curry means is that it is it's just a mixture of spices. So you could do it without the curry, but maybe you want to do another soup rather than that, because part of the joy of this is the flavor of the curry. Any other questions out there? Okay, I'm going to push this aside, and the next one that we're going to do is something that I enjoy making a lot, and I love this. Again, you probably don't want to use these beautiful mushrooms to do this. This is the one that you can use. You can use mushrooms that are a little over the hill, or something's kept them too long, especially like cremini and those that have opened up and all of that. And what I'm going to do is make a pate out of this. I call it a mushroom pate. And you can serve it as a pate, which is what I'm going to do, which is what we're going to prepare here, or it makes a delicious filling for pasta, for all kinds of things. I also sometimes will take this and beat it into butter and use that to put on top of grilled meats or fishes or vegetables too. And so I've already cooked up a bunch of kind of mushrooms of all kinds. One of the things that's in here were some dried mushrooms, which have their own kind of intense flavor. And they just sauteed them all together with a little garlic and cumin. And I'm going to take these and go over here to the food processor. And what's in here, which I've already done because it's kind of noisy, is to take cashews and a little bit of nut oil, or you could use olive oil or whatever it is. And I ground those up because they add a nice flavor and texture to this. I'm going to put them in the food processor, like so. And I'm going to process this now. I've maybe a few fresh herbs. I've got some parsley and basil here to add to this, as much or as little as you want. And make the pate. And the idea is not to turn it into something totally smooth. We want it like a pate to have a little bit of texture to it. This is the moment that I want to, you can take a look at it there. You can sort of see what the, what kind of it looks like. And I want to maybe just grind it just a little bit more. Taste it. A little salt and pepper. But it's pretty delicious with all of those mushrooms and all of that stuff into it. And if it were too dry, you could add some more oil to it or butter if you were carrying about making it vegan. Okay, I think that's about as much as I want to do. And what I've done here, if I wanted to present this like a pate, I could get a little bale jar here and tastes good. I like, and it's one of those things that's better as it sits for a while. And again, it has lots of uses besides just serving it as a pate with baguettes and things like that. But what I'm going to do is put it in this little jar. And doesn't it look like pate?
It does. How long will this keep?
This will keep obviously refrigerated, for up to a week. It also will freeze wonderfully. And as I say, all of you are you're great chefs, so you can think of all the other ways that you might use this. So what I'm going to do is to take this, and here it is, and I've got to present it like, let's see, let's fill this up so that it looks fancier. I'm going to push this down. Like so. And so obviously this is quite a lot of this stuff. This you could use a smaller ramekin or anything for this, but I love these little jars. Like so. Okay, stop doing this, John. Here we go. And what I'm going to do is wipe this off so that it's nice and clean looking and all of that. And then here it is presented here. And if you presented it like a traditional pate, you could do some little cornichons, some coarse grain mustard, along with some good French bread or a baguette or something like that. And it would be really delicious. But it's quite a good thing to know how to make. And again, I think its great virtue is that when you get those mushrooms that go a little bit over the hill, here's the great use for them. So there you go. So that's our second dish for today. The third dish is we have to have something fried, right? So here we go. So I've got this little fryer here, which is great. And what I'm going to do here, you could do this with any mushroom, but I especially like this with the mayatakes, the hen of the woods mushroom. And I've got some here.
I'm just gonna show this.
Cornstarch, some rice flour, not regular flour. And the reason for the rice flour is that it cooks more, gets crisper. I think it's a nicer finish. I'm going to take this over here. I need 1 egg yolk that I'm going to drop in here. And a cup of, or an equal amount of sparkling water that I'm going to whisk into this. So do you think I can do this by my eye? And what the sparkling water does, so you want to make this just before you're going to use it. What the sparkling water does, as most of you know, is that it lightens the batter. It makes it a lot more, so that when it fries, it's the tempura batter idea, that those bubbles help create a much lighter, not so dense. Make sure this is mixed well. And so what I've got here are the maitake. Again, you can use any mushroom for this, but I think these are so beautifully exotic that what I'm going to do with this is first coat them lightly in cornstarch, like so, like so. Shake it with that extra stuff off. Drop them into the batter. How much can I get in my little fryer here? That's probably as much as I'm going to get in there in one load. So take this, make sure they get well coated with the batter. And you can see it's a very light, and that's part of the joy of this. It's not a heavy, doughy kind of beer batter sort of concoction, but it's something very light. Then take this, drop it in. Can I get one more in there? Maybe one more. And let that bubble away. I included in there, all of you know about frying, but I always like to repeat the ideas about frying. Is that good, clean oil, number one, and an oil that has a relatively high smoke point, at least 375 or above. I think for home use, I recommend that people use canola oil, which has a relatively high smoke point. There are all kinds of things out there. I think if I had my choice, and luckily it's become cheaper in recent times, is to use grapeseed oil, which I think is really fantastic because it has a very high smoke point. And what the smoke point means, as you know, it's that point at which the oil begins to smoke. And if you smoke an oil, you don't want to use it, because what happens is its chemistry changes pretty dramatically. That's not so good for you. So you want to seek out one of those oils that have that high smoke point. So that's number one. That it's clean, obviously. Clean the oil or use fresh oil to the extent that you can. And the third thing that I found, it's not so important here, but the third thing I found is that if you make sure that the food that you're going to drop into the oil is cold before you drop it in there. And the reason for that is there's I don't know what the physics of this are, but when you drop cold food into hot fat, you can almost hear it. What happens is that it takes and it sets the surface. You can almost you know, as soon as it goes in there, it sets the surface and it creates a barrier, not a complete one, but creates a barrier that keeps the food from absorbing excess oil. And we don't want food to be greasy, you know. So these are looking pretty good. Let me just turn this guy over here. I'm also feeling them. They're pretty crispy at this point, which is what I'm searching for. But that cold into hot is something to remember, especially for things that are going to take a longer period of time to cook than this is. So here they are. So what we would do with this is drain them. I'm going to drain them here on some paper towel, but you can just drain them in the pot like so. They're very pretty. I'm going to arrange them here. And what I made was a little bit of, and it could be any kind of dipping sauce that you like, but I made a little ponzu here, which I gave you we might as well fry up the rest of this.
As well. The more the merrier.
Which you can make yourself or buy commercial ponzu sauces, which are basically lemon or lime, a little bit of soy, a little bit of mirin, all of those kinds of things. And to finish with, what I'm going to do is I'm looking a little oily, you put a little salt on, which is important now, or we could use a little bit of the furikake, which is the rice seasoning, which is has a little seaweed and sesame seed and all of that stuff in it. So it's very pretty. And there you go. So there's our maitake mushroom with ponzu sauce. So that's it. I'm done. Questions?
There's one. There is a question. I'm just having a hard time seeing it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nope, no question. Julianne just said, nice job, chef.
Okay, well, you're welcome. The key to this is what I tried to do today were things that, number one, take advantage of the really delicious food. I mean, we all know that, how delicious mushrooms can be. And that are fitting very much into patterns of today where people are moving away from meat. They're, you know, I think the person that the first experience that I had with vegetarian menus was I had the chance to go to Charlie Trotter's in Chicago, probably 10, 12 years ago, when he started set menus that were vegetables only. And he was ahead of his time, and you should be honored for that. But look at all the people who are going that way now. It's pretty extraordinary. So, and it's a good thing to do. So thanks very much. Hope to see you soon. Please contact me if you ever want to. You can get me at chefjohnash.com with any questions. And I publish things fairly regularly on there, recipes and other things. My other great love is wine, so I talk a lot about that. So,
Chef, somebody's asking what your favorite mushroom is.
my favorite mushroom is this one. They're called the maitake mushroom. But I love all of them. And I think my second favorite, and let me just show you, let me get these out of here. I'll pile them up just to have a full plate of these, which are, Tiffany, are you going to eat these?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
I'll fight you for him.
So, and the other one that I like is this guy, which very much, which is the trumpet mushroom. And again, they've been used in Asia for a long time, and if you could feel them, you just have to take my word for it. If you feel it, this is just really, really firm, the base of this. So one of the things that I love to do with this, let me grab up a little knife here. One of the things I love to do with this is to cut them in half or thirds, depending on how thick they are. Take these, grill them, lightly oil them, season them, and grill them. And they, again, become the meat component to almost any dish you can think of. The other fascinating thing about the trumpet mushroom is this. Let me grab a fork here. Is that you can take these and with a fork or whatever you want to do, you can take and shred them like so, and they become, then season them. You can kind of see what's happening there. Season them, saute them, and then flavor them. And this becomes the alternative for things like pulled pork and pulled chicken and all of that stuff. And they have great flavor to them. So that's another thing. So that's another mushroom. I like them all. So there you go. That it?
No more questions
Okay.
that I can see. Oh, wait. Could you show us individually and tell us about the other mushrooms, please? Sorry, I didn't see that.
Okay, I would be happy to do that. So these, of course, you recognize, creminis, which are a common mushroom. This guy, again, hen of the woods, or as it's called in Japan, maitake, the hen of the woods. It's called that because it looks like a hen with all of its little chicks following it and all of that stuff. This is one called, it's from the oyster mushroom family, but it is called alba mushroom, which is pretty, and it keeps its lovely white color. The other one that I used today in the soup was this one called Clam Shell, again, part of the oyster mushroom family. And one of the things that's fascinating about these, let me see if I can show you here, is how they're grown. They're grown now in sawdust, and they put them in jars with the sawdust in there and put the spores of the mushrooms in there, and then they grow up out of the jar. I wish I would have had one here, but you can kind of see this is where the jar was with the sawdust that's in there. Then they grow, and when they get to this size, then they harvest them and they go over again. So these are totally organic as long as the wood that you're growing them on is organic. So that's another good blessing of these are the purity of their flavors. You're not worrying about it growing out in the woods someplace, and God knows you don't know what animals have walked by recently and all of that stuff. You can be sure that these are pretty clean.
Okay.
Is that it? Any other questions?
Let me see. Let's see.
And
What's
Kaffir loin again? If you want to take a look, we can walk out and
sure.
take a look at my big Kaffir loin tree growing in its pot here.
Somebody did ask John, what's the best way to store mushrooms?
So take a look at this, and then I'll answer that question.
Sounds good.
So here they are, and you can see the little limes are beginning to form right here. On there, and the lime that you get from this, it's kind of funny looking. It's kind of knobbly. There's no juice in it at all, but you can use the peel for zest, which is really delicious, and it's the same flavor as the leaf. But they're well, all of you have had Thai food, and when it is the essence of Thai cooking, these leaves. Best way to store mushrooms is do not store them in plastic bags, because they will they're still alive, they're still aspiring, so they're giving off oxygen and all that stuff. And what will happen if they're in a plastic bag, a sealed plastic bag, is that they will begin to rot and begin to get slimy. So the best way to do it, I think, is to keep them in keep them in something like parchment and keep them covered. If you're going to put them in a fridge, because the refrigerator is such a dry environment, and these need some moisture, keep them in there, and then you can put them in a box with the parchment over them, and they'll last a long time. These ones, especially things like the trumpets, I've kept them around for 2 or 3 weeks without any problem. Actually, all of these you could do that with. So.
Don't take any more questions. think we're good.
Is that it?
I think that's all for the questions. And I just want to say thank you to Chef John and Tiffany for helping assist. And then any of the recipes that Chef John made is on the Chef Conference website. So guys, feel free to head over there. And then we look forward to seeing you guys all at 12:30 tomorrow for day 2 of Chef Conference.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank
Bye.
you. Bye.